In the past, I tried out Girls Frontline as I heard it was a really good game, and shortly into playing it, the game absolutely beat my ass. I was out there looking freer than oxygen, I was in the laundromat getting washed. They even used the Tide Pods on me, the same ones with a positive KD against children. I was looking like the Persians in 300. So when it came time for me to try out the sequel, my blaring PTSD put me a little on edge, but I was not prepared for just how easy the main story content was. Now I'm going to talk a lot about the gameplay because I think it's the only big negative this game has. If you're unfamiliar with how this game plays, it's usually described as an auto chess. The auto part refers to the fact that the characters automatically attack and use skills, bar ultimates. The chess part, I have zero clue why it's in there. With flexible strategy, you could command units after getting tactical points. The three commands are moving a character, making them immediately cast a skill, and making a fucking tornado. There's also a different strategy that focuses on offensive play, such as making your units attack one specific enemy and using heavy bombardment to cleanse the non-believers. With all that said, the gameplay has one big limiting factor in it. That's the fact that you're meant to steamroll the enemies. If a certain amount of time passes in a battle, then the enemy gets buffs and you get debuffed. At the max time possible, you don't receive any healing and the enemy's attack is doubled. Although this effect doesn't appear to happen at some outpost terminals, which is where you fight bosses. Although there are some bosses which instantly kill you if you take too long. However, in the stages prior to a boss, that mechanic makes me not want to challenge a stage unless I'm at the recommended power. It creates a game where you rarely snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. Although the game does overestimate the recommended power. But that isn't the sole reason I think that way. The other reason is tied into the fact that the game is Schrodinger's wet dream. This game could either be fully idle or a strategy game, based entirely per each stage. There are times where I can effectively use strategy to beat a stage I couldn't auto, but there are also times the stupid ass AI will actively work to hurt my strategy. At times, my defender decided to leave the area in which they could get healed. A different defender has a skill where they place all ally units into a specific area for protection. After using that, some units thought they were built different, decided to leave that area, and then were turned into paste shortly afterwards. The decisions I've seen from the AI has made me confident in the fact that robots won't enslave humanity anytime soon. There is strategy you can employ in the game, but there are times that won't work in the face of your own units' stupidity. That mixed in with the battlefield overload mechanic makes this game feel more idle to me, with most strategies being resigned to the placement of units, building your team, and the ultimate skills you can use. The command skills can be used to achieve a specific strategy, but the AI could also achieve the possibility of fucking with that strategy. And because the game is an auto chess, this is the desired effect. It accomplishes what it sets out to do. The game is in between idle and strategy, but I personally wish it was fully a strategy game. However, another flaw within the gameplay is the fact that I don't feel as though I actually played the game. Now that may sound weird as I'm on the current last sector of the game, Sector 5, but this game has a handy little feature called Planned Mode, which is basically where you have Skynet play the game for you. They go through what's decided as the best route, select functions for you, do battles for you, and basically play the game for you. Because I never found it to be really hard, that mode was able to finish most stages for me, bar bosses. So as I had the game running in the background, I damn near finished the Queen's Gambit, I saw the Dictator, I literally watched Netflix as the T-1000s blazed ass through the game. Now it is important to note that the game has some difficult content through the hard mode versions of stages and the endless exploration mode, but those are optional. So you could just get a max level team and then America your way through those modes. There isn't any reason to interact with the difficulty when it's optional, and a big worry I have is when the game gets really hard, then the lack of full strategic options will shine in the game. For example, if you want to move your units to your choosing, then you need flexible strategy, but if you want all your units to target an enemy, then you'll need the offensive strategy. So you gotta choose between having free movement or being able to target a specific enemy. And if the enemies are really hard to kill, if they are bullet sponges, then they'll start to get immense buffs, whilst you are severely weakened. With all that being said, there is a lot I like about the gameplay. The stages do look really similar, but there are various different effectiles which change the way you would want to approach the stage. The game is still fresh on global, so seeing more mechanics within the gameplay, in the form of effectiles, is good. It's another layer added to the arena building which prevents fields from feeling incredibly similar, and the roguelike elements in the stages make a run feel more interesting depending on the buffs you could get. In one stage, I got so many defender buffs to the point where my tank never died, and if they did, they got revived with half of their HP. Or another run where my snipers turned into fucking Sub-Zero and completely froze the entire enemy fleet over and over. Another good thing about the gameplay is the fact that the main story stages only cost 1 stamina to enter, so you could basically do them whenever. Also, the game doesn't have a sweep function, but you could set up multiple auto runs at once. So essentially you could set it and then 5 minutes later have used up all your stamina. Which is almost all I have to say about the game's flaws. There is one global exclusive flaw I'll get into later. Everything else it does is amazing. The only other flaw that springs to mind is the sheer amount of tutorials it waterboards you with. But I appreciate that, as Girls Frontline kinda just fed you to the wolves like you were a weak Spartan kid. If you wanted a tutorial, then you needed to go on Google to find a fan-made guide. That aside, it is one huge thing that I don't see in many gacha games. It doesn't feel overly grindy, at least for the main story requirements. So many gacha games require you to grind longer than Liz Truss was in office just to meet the recommended power for fucking stage 2 of the game. The reason as to why it doesn't feel grindy is because of the copious amounts of stamina it gives you as a new player. But when you first start playing a gacha is when you need stamina the most, as at the end game when you have your team built, you can just hoard up resources. Another thing I love and want to see put in so many gacha games is the tips function in the story. The tips function is a menu you have which describes anything important in the story, such as breaking down some more complicated terms it may use, or describing the culture of an area within the world. It's something that keeps track of various terms that are being thrown around, so if you ever forget what a character is referring to, then the tips function could help you remember that. This system is something you see in many visual novels, and I always thought gacha games needed it, especially ones that are a visual novel, like this game is. The story is pretty damn long, but I never felt as though it was wasting my time. I've only finished chapter 3, but the first 2 chapters had pretty interesting moments within them. The writing was good, it wasn't masterful, but for the early chapters of a story, it did a good job of being interesting. Although the 3rd chapter was poorly written. First 2 had good writing, and then those writers must have done the Kratos fall, because that shit fell the fuck off in the 3rd chapter. I don't know about the later ones as I wanted to get this review out in a timely manner, but overall I like what I've seen so far. And the best part about the story is the setting. You're within a purely digital world made up of AIs, and that world is separated into sectors. Rosm is focused on AI research, while Cyclops is oriented around combat data. This setting is great for a live service game because you could have each different area feeling unique and fresh as it's meant to be that way. You don't need the story to be confined within the world you made, as the world in this game seems to have many different possibilities for set pieces. So far the story hasn't blown me away, but it's easy to recommend reading it as it's pretty easy to digest. Although the lack of voice acting is unfortunate. But the greatest thing in this game is how free-to-play friendly it is. This shit feels like a charity. It made me feel like a Make-A-Wish kid. They were so generous. The drop rate for a 3-star is 3.6%, and at 60 pulls without one you are guaranteed one. At 180 pulls you can spark the limited character, and a bit after their banner some of them are added permanently, with banner reruns after that. It has the common star up system by getting duplicates, but you don't need duplicates of the same character. Rolling for any character gives you neural kits, which you could use to buy what is needed to star up a character, and it gives you stages that handle those same things for free. This is true even for limited characters. The only thing you need to buy is skins, but that's perfectly reasonable with how much this game gives you. Even the given units are good. My team consisted of the Hubble Space Telescope, Croquette, Angela, the director and librarian of her hole's namesake, Cult of the Lamb, and the Idol Healer, Barbara. In the squad, Croquette is a given unit, Cult of the Lamb is a 1-star, Angela is a 2-star. You are able to choose Barbara on the beginner's banner, and the telescope is the only 3-star you need to roll for. And I had to reach the 180 spark, which is good because I got 180 pulls, but also bad because I had to use 180 pulls. In total, I've gotten 215 rolls in the 2-ish weeks I've played this game, and there are still many sources of rolls I haven't gone for just because I don't need to. And that's saying a lot because your boy has a gambling addiction. The game seems really uninterested with nickel and diming their players. I honestly have zero clue how they pull in the necessary revenue to keep their games online whilst they are actively running a charity. I've heard some people say that Mica Team is used for money laundering, but I have zero problem with that shit if these are the quality of games that they make. And I'm confident that this game will run for a long time, similar to how Girls Frontline has. Mica Team loves the games that they make and keep them online for a very long time. In other words, they're the opposite of Tencent. Although there is one controversy with the game right now. That's the fact that Exceptional Protocol, the best source of quartz sand, isn't in the global version yet. They said it'll be included later, but as of now it isn't in the game. I have faith in this company, so hopefully when it's released they'll give it a cycle's worth of rewards, or however much global players have missed out on. If not, then it'll feel pretty damn scummy. Aside from that, there aren't many bugs that I've seen, which is wild to say as most games that release nowadays always need to have one or more bugs in them, but this just doesn't have any. So I mean, I don't really know what else to say, just kinda surprised the game didn't have to release with coding that's held together with scotch tape and toothpaste. I mean, look at this chibi, I suppose? It's pretty high quality. Granted, it has some psychopath eyes, but the threat of a cruel death aside, it looks pretty cool. Although with all that being said, the game's really solid. The only negative to me is that the gameplay isn't as involved as I wanted it to be, which is by design. However, it'd be a stretch to say I hate it, as overall I think it's alright. Just a bit disappointing. But I give the game an 8 out of 10. It's a game I recommend anyone to try out, as this is one of the, now more common, games that isn't looking to scam their players, but instead create something that people love.